Hey, my lovely Willow Vibes Tribe members. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to my rambles. I've had multiple people ask me to do story times or wondering when I was going to do story times again because, that's when I came back. I was talking about my father and sharing story times. And I do want to have a variety of types of videos on my channel. But certain storytime stories are going to be exclusively on Patreon because they're touchy subject matters, trigger warnings, things like that, because some of you have experienced these similar traumatic events, maybe, to a lesser degree, the same degree, or worse. Because I know that what I've gone through is definitely not the worst of the worst. There are people who have been through a hell of a lot worse than I have. So it is what it is, but I'm not here to compare trauma stories with everybody. If you want to share something that's happened to you, feel free. You're more than welcome to do so, but nobody should ever compare their trauma to somebody else's because we all handle situations differently. And even if something sounds worse, somebody else's story sounds worse, more heinous, more traumatic, it doesn't mean that what I experienced or what you experienced is less valuable or less credible, I should say, because it invokes very similar feelings. The struggle to healing and overcoming these traumatic events, no matter how severe they are. It's all the same, basically, is what I'm getting at. So that's why I hate it when people compare, like, oh, well, so-and-so had it a lot worse, or, it could always be worse. Yes, it could always be worse, but that's like kind of devaluing somebody and what they're experiencing, making them think like, am I being a crybaby, because, I didn't almost die because it wasn't a near-death experience, or because, I wasn't concussed or this or that. I wasn't stabbed or shot. Does that make what I went through any less credible, any less traumatic? No, it doesn't. So that's why comparing is never a good thing. And when people do that and they devalue somebody's trauma or make them think that they're crazy and that, that they're weak or whatever, that's a form of abuse all in itself, if you think about it. And a lot of times people who do that, they are narcissists, or they just have narcissistic tendencies or traits. And every single person on this planet has narcissistic traits because we are selfish beings. Even if you're the most generous, kind-hearted individual, we all have selfish moments. It's human nature. It is what it is. I'm not a saint. Even Mother Teresa, probably had narcissistic tendencies and moments, and even if they're just thoughts, not everybody acts out on these things, and not everybody is a true narcissist, but there are multiple types of narcissists, and that's what I want to kind of talk about. I have many stories when it comes to people that I've dated and the things that I've experienced, and I have dated narcissists in my past quite a few times, and I know that they were drawn to me because I'm an empath, and I was drawn to them because it's like trauma bonding in a sense. Actually, that's exactly what it is. I grew up in a not so healthy home environment, and my role model, my father, my male role model growing up, was very abusive mentally, emotionally, and physically. So it's like associating love with pain. Ultimately, it's not ideal, and even though it hurts, it's a sense of complacency. It's comforting. It's weird how trauma and abuse can be comfortable. It's like if you're so used to something, you get comfortable with it, and therefore you either seek it out or you stay in it because that's what you know. And it's funny because I have different stories, and this one's going to be about MV. I'm just gonna say that is his name because I'm not going to name names, but MG is an overt narcissist, and so is MV, and then RM is a covert narcissist. So I've dealt with multiple narcissists in my life, and I've dated them. These are exes of mine. But I mean, there was more than just them, but these were the three that stand out the most. And I'm going to discuss MV, even though MG was the one who I met prior to MV. But I want to share that in a different story. So this one's all going to be about MV. And it's going to lead into RM, who is a covert narcissist. I don't know, there's a pattern here that I didn't see. And what's prompting me to talk about this is, I've watched videos on YouTube about narcissistic traits and gaslighting and, what people like this do to their counterparts and the people around them, even if they're just friends or family members, because narcissists, it doesn't have to, a narcissistic relationship doesn't just have to be romantically speaking. I mean, my father's a narcissist, so I grew up with one. And I've dealt with narcissistic friends as well. They're not really friends. They're just, you find that out later in life or, at the end of your friendship. But besides that, it's just very selfish people. And I don't really have an itinerary with how I'm going to discuss this topic, so I might be a little bit all over the place, because if you follow me for a minute, even in my readings, I'm a little ADD. It's like it pops in my head and I say it kind of thing. So this isn't going to be a very structured video, so just bear with me. But watching, YouTube videos on narcissistic traits and tendencies and, the definition of an overt narcissist and a covert narcissist, it's... those videos are all well and good because they do educate you. It gives you a baseline of what to expect with these types of people, with these personality types. But sometimes I've noticed too, and I've watched multiple, counselors, therapists, whatever credentials these people have who are, informing the public of these, the traits of a narcissist and these definitions. It's, even though it's educational, it's hard to, how do I want to explain it? It's not easy to understand. Like, it's like, okay, yes, this gaslighting is basically, you can say the definition is basically when somebody is trying to make you seem crazy or make you think that you're crazy because they deny their own actions or what they've said. So, for example, this happened when RM, my ex, called me, and he was name calling and, I'm a dumb bitch and I'm all this shit. And he was just like going on a rampage, belittling me. And when I called him on his shit, he was like, I never said that. I didn't say that. I'm like, you just said it 2 seconds ago. No, I didn't. And he kept denying it, which makes you internalize it and go, wait, I know you said it. Are you fucking, like, are you crazy? Like, are you too drunk to remember? Are you, like, what's going on here? So it still is a mind fuck, even if you know that you're not in the wrong, you know what I mean? But that's what gaslighting is. And if you don't put an example with it or an experience, it can be hard to connect the dots. So it's like, even if you read all the books and you've watched all these videos and you've learned, you can pick a narcissist out of a fucking crowd, It's like, I will never run into a situation like this. I will never date another one or one to begin with, because, I know what to look for. I know what the red flags are. But do you? Because I wasn't ignorant to any of this stuff. I watch a lot of crime shows and, the psychology behind psychopaths, sociopaths, which is not even a clinical term anymore, narcissist, overt, covert, whatever. I basically am very in tune with these traits and attributes and what these people are capable of and how they act and blah, blah, blah. So I know the red flags, and I knew it back then too, because I've always been interested in psychology and what makes people tick and why people do and say the things that they do and say. But I still fell victim to it time and time again, and a lot of it had to do with me as an individual, because of how I grew up and just my preconceived notion of what a relationship should be. I I don't know, I guess I lived in a fantasy land and I was very naive for many years, and I still have, you know, certain naive traits. You know, I am naive to certain things still, but not like I used to be. And it's not really being naive now, it's more of trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. I always wanted to see the best in people. And I've said this before on my channel that some people, there is no good in them. They're just pure fucking evil. And before I even started recording, I was thinking about MV, and it's fucked up. But when I opened up the middle of this deck, what came out was the Devil, the Seven of Swords, and Judgment. It's like, yeah, he's basically the devil reincarnated. He really is. He's an evil, evil person. But he didn't always come off that way. Well, he did, but I didn't. It's like project people type thing. It's like, oh, if you have a problem, you come from a bad home, you have this issue, that issue, whatever, I can fix you. I want to help you. And I've always wanted to help people, and that's why I do what I do now, and that's why I'm even saying this, is because hopefully this information will help you connect the dots in your own relationships, you know, whether they're past relationships that you're reflecting on, healing from, working through, whatever, or it's a current situation or even an upcoming situation, so that you can spot these things right off the bat. And oh yeah, I'm not doing the video on RM yet. I was like, oh, I forgot to grab the letter that I was going to read, because I mean, I still have love notes, cards, and shit that some of my exes have written me, and at the time I viewed them as being, you know, very endearing and loving and whatever. But now looking back and really reflecting, because hindsight's 2020, it's like, wow, this is so controlling. This is so over the top psycho. Like, I can't believe I didn't see it then. Like, reading some of this stuff actually instilled fear in me, and it's like, whoa, like, I can't believe I was submerged so deep in this bullshit that, you know, I didn't even see it at the time. Hell, I didn't even see it until RM called me and started pulling the bullshit again. So it's almost like I saw right through it. I saw him and the situation through a different lens, and I needed the time and space, the dash in between, or whatever someone said, to really be able to see it. Because even after the breakup and all the bullshit that happened between him and I always held him in high regard. I was like, you know, he was one of my nicer exes. You know, I blamed myself. And now I know it wasn't me. But that's a story for another day. So this one, he's a covert narcissist, but MV is an overt narcissist, which is easier to detect, I guess you could say, because they're grandiose. They're very selfish, self-absorbed. They care about their appearance. They're very vain. You know, I'm the best of the best, and the world owes me type energy. So you can kind of pick them out of a crowd. And a lot of people are magnetically drawn to them because they are so over the top. They tend to have a lot of friends or a lot of people around, but they use everybody in their life. Like anyone that any narcissist, covert or overt, any person in their life is there for a reason. They're a pawn in a game to the narcissist. It's not because they like this person or they have feelings for them, because they don't really love anyone except for themselves. They'll say it, and they will quote unquote act that way. They will show signs of affection, but it's all for a bigger plan, a bigger purpose. It's all for them to get what they want. Ultimately, it's a big scheme, and a lot of the times the victims in the pawns in this game, they don't even realize that they're being used. Like, for example, MV and RM, those are two of my exes. MV's the overt narc, and RM is a covert. Well, they were friends. I don't know if they still are. I don't really care, but they were at the time. That's how I actually met RM. And I was seeing it through a different lens at the time. I knew that my boyfriend at the time was using his friend. I just knew it. I was like, yeah, haven't you noticed that he only calls you when he needs something? Hey, can you buy me beer? Hey, can you get me this? Hey, can you give me a ride? He never called just to shoot the shit. He never called to check in. He didn't give two flying fucks about his friends. He didn't. He was just like, oh, well, you have money and I don't. You have a car and I don't. So you add value to my life because you can do all this shit for me. So he was just using him. And I kind of pointed that out to RM, and that's how we connected, because I don't know how the hell he didn't see it, or he did see it and he was like, yeah, I know he uses me, but whatever, I use him too. It was something like that. So it was basically narc against narc. They were both using each other, which I guess I was blinded to it, even though I'm like saying it to him and explaining how horrible MV is. I was fucking dating him. It's like, okay, well, he's doing this to me too, but it was almost like I was turning a blind eye to that. But anyways, so let's get into the story. I think I said this, but I'm not sure. The only reason I'm even sharing this story time and this experience with him, and some of it is pretty extreme. He did some really shitty things to me. We actually made the paper when he beat me up on the side of the road at the end of our relationship. So, this was one of my extreme experiences. But the only reason I'm saying it is because I want you to listen to what I went through and the dynamic between him and I, so that you can pinpoint this in your own life, in your past, current, or future situations, so that you can see these red flags, because they don't always look like red flags when you're immersed in it. Looking back, you'll be like, what the fuck was I thinking? But in the middle of it, you're not thinking. You have no time to think, because that's what they want. And when people are very manipulative, usually narcissists are they're master manipulators. They're good at what they do. And they rope people in, left and right. And you don't even, it's almost like, wow, I didn't even see that coming. They'll just smack you upside the head with reality once it's all said and done, once you're discarded for good. It's kind of funny how they beg you to stay with them. It's almost like, I can leave you, but you can't leave me. So if you leave a narcissist first, they will do whatever they can to get back into your good graces so that they can do it to you, because it builds up their ego. I don't know, something like that. But I wrote down a few notes, and not much. So like I said, it's going to be a little all over the place. But I met MV online through Plenty of Fish. And I am going to do another story time about online dating and some of my experiences, because he's not the only jackass I met online. Just gonna say, a lot of the jackasses I didn't meet in person, but I did meet a few. So it's plenty of flops. Stay the fuck away from that site or online dating. Just use your discretion, and really use your discernment, not your discretion. Protect yourself. Just use caution when online dating. I don't think I even have to say that. Most people know that, but yeah, I didn't have very many good experiences with it, so I'm never doing it again. But we met online, and he had messaged me because he saw a photo of me and he thought I was cute, and he said, hey, beautiful. And when I was looking over his profile, there really wasn't much written on it, and I was like, yeah, okay, you didn't take the time to, say anything on here, so I would have to ask him directly. And he had two photos, and one of them he looked okay in, but the other ones I was like, I wasn't even attracted to him. I kind of thought he was ugly, if I'm going to be honest. I was like, and I didn't even want to talk to him, but he was kind of persistent. He kept messaging me, and I was trying to talk to somebody else, and I was actually in the middle of a conversation with somebody else, like on my phone, texting through the chat, the online chat thing on POF. And I asked him what he did for work, and he told me that he worked on a farm, and he explained it to me, and actually that was the same place where my mother worked, and she works in human resources. So he knew my mother. He found that one common ground that we had, because he could tell I wasn't interested. I wasn't really saying much. And when it comes to women, usually we'll write paragraphs to a man's sentence, And at least that's how I am anyways, because if I'm getting to know you, I'll, tell you about myself, and I expect the same in return. But he was doing more of the talking. And, I kind of like that, because most guys didn't act like that, especially online. But he kept searching for the common ground because we didn't have anything in common, and that was it. It was my mom and where he worked. And I worked there for a short time after him and I broke up. Well, at least a year after we broke up. But so at that point, I asked my mom about him, and she knew who I was talking about, but she didn't really know him. She's like, oh, I've never had any problems. He always shows up to work. So, he was a good employee, blah, 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 whatever. So I was like, do you think I should talk to him? She goes, if you want to, I don't see anything wrong with him. Like, you know what I mean? So I kind of got the okay from her because she had already met him. She interviewed him and everything. She didn't get a bad vibe. So I was like, okay, I'll talk to him. So I gave him my number. And instead of like just texting, which is what most people do, he called me the second he got my number. So I heard his voice. He had a lisp, which I didn't want to make fun of him for because I have one myself. When I'm really tired or intoxicated, it really comes out. It's not as bad as it used to be, but, I'm used to it. So I noticed that about him, and I didn't say anything. He brought it up, and I was like, oh, it's kind of endearing, been there. And I explained that I had one myself. So we talked for quite a while, actually, and he made me laugh, and I don't know, it was like, even though I brushed off my initial feelings of, I'm not interested, and I probably should have listened to myself, I kept it going, and we kept talking. And then I believe after talking for a few days, we met up, and he drove over to my house because at the time he had a vehicle, and he had come over and we were hanging out, and I didn't sleep with him on the first date or anything like that. We had a few drinks, and I think we ate dinner here. It wasn't anything memorable because honestly I don't even remember exactly how it went down, but he was very affectionate, It wasn't, I wouldn't call it love bombing because it was very subtle, He seemed respectable. He was respecting my boundaries. He wasn't pushing me into doing anything I wasn't ready for because I told him I'm not that type of girl, blah, blah, blah. And he respected that. We did have sex like the second time or the third time we connected, but, it is what it is. So the one thing I remember in the very beginning, though, with the whole love bombing, I guess, more of that happened with RM, the covert narcissist, my, MV's friend, when we started connecting, especially romantically. He was very, very over the top, which I'll explain in another video, but MV wasn't that way. It was very subtle, but it was kind of love bombing. Like, he was persistent. But I don't know, he wasn't like a leech. It wasn't over the top crazy because I don't like people who cling on to me. Like, if you're stuck to me like glue, I will push you the fuck away. And he wasn't like that. So, I don't know, we just had a lot of fun, and but the persistence and the love bombing, I guess you could say, he was very pushy in us having a title and us being together. Like, you're mine. And he always said that, you're mine, you're mine. And I never, and I've had multiple people say this to me before, and I didn't think anything of it any of the times it was said, but that's possessiveness. It's being very possessive, like, and he showed that you don't touch what is his, you don't fuck with what is his, in any way, shape, or form throughout our relationship. Let me tell you what. He made it clear to me and everyone that I was his, which looking back is not exactly the best sign. It's not very healthy, but he was very persistent in us, becoming, Facebook official and, being an item, being a thing, being a couple very early on, which I was okay with because at the time I didn't like being alone. I didn't want to be alone. I didn't go from relationship to relationship, but I thought I needed somebody, and that just had to do with my own insecurities, and, that's probably why I've been single for so long now, because I don't fucking need anybody, and I've gotten to the point where I know that I don't need anybody, so it's almost like, do I even want anybody? So I think I'm going from one extreme to the next, but that's, it is what it is. So yeah, we became official really quickly. like I said, he made me laugh. Everything was great. I didn't know his vices or anything like that at this time. I knew that he liked to drink, but, he told me he was in the service, and he was. He was in the Army, but he told me that he had an honorable discharge, but later down the road I found out that that was a lie. He had a dishonorable discharge because he is an alcoholic and he had that problem, and he is a drug addict. He had that problem while he was in the service, and he did a lot of bad things, and he'd get intoxicated to the point where they put him in military jail and they forced his ass home. He had a dishonorable discharge. But of course, he's not going to say that to me because it makes him look bad. But I found that out. I think we were still dating. It was towards the end, right before we broke up. There was lots of things he lied about. He was a chronic liar, and a lot of narcissists are, because they'll tell you anything that they think you want to hear, to build themselves up to make them look better than they really are. And basically, he's a walking lie is what he is. But I ate it all up. I believed all the bullshit he fed me for quite a while. For the majority of our relationship, obviously, because I stayed with him. But anyways, in the very beginning, it was snowing out, and he had like this S10 truck, and it wasn't even his truck. He told me it was his, but come to find out, it was his stepfather's. He had his license, but he was just using the vehicle, and he was only supposed to go, from home to work, and he was going a bunch of other places too, because he was coming to my house, which was like a 45 minutes away from where he lived and where he worked, because he could literally walk to work from where his parents lived. He told me he paid rent there, blah blah blah, but no, he was just a bum sleeping on the couch. He didn't even have his own room in this house. But of course I didn't know that, because I hadn't talked to his family at that point or anything, and he had moved in with me so quick that I really didn't find out until later on down the road that that was his living situation. And this is kind of how he moved in. And it's so weird how this crap happens. And it's almost like, was it planned? Or was it just like, ooh, this is the perfect opportunity? I kind of feel like it was just the perfect opportunity. But, it was like the perfect storm. Everything coming together in a fucked up way, But it was icy out, and he would fuck around behind the wheel, and he was intoxicated. He had thrown twisted tea cans out the window so that nobody knew that he was drinking, because he would drink and do drugs at work. I mean, he smoked pot and stuff, which I didn't really care for, because I don't smoke marijuana, and I hate the smell of it, and he was annoying when he was high and whatever, but, I let it slide kind of thing, and, I mean, I drink too, so the alcohol wasn't a big deal, because he seemed like the life of the party when he drank anyways, so, he wasn't being nasty, mean, or anything, so that didn't really bother me, but that would change. It's because he would only drink so much when I was around him, but that changed really quickly, and I got to see the dark side, really early on. I feel so stupid for staying. I think that's why it's so hard to talk about, because it makes you feel like a dumbass when you look back and you're like, why did I put myself through that? Why did I put up with this crap? Why did I stay? And a lot of people had asked me that question, and it's because I love him. It's because I love him and he loves me. It's like, you don't understand. It's brainwashing is what it is. But anyways, it was icy and shitty out, and he was being a ding-dong on the fucking roads, and he crashed into a pole, I believe, and I think he totaled his stepdad's truck, which is how I found out that that wasn't even his vehicle, because he was crying to me about it. Once I finally got a hold of him, my mom told me, because I was trying to text him and call him and he wouldn't answer, and I was like, oh, maybe he's really busy at work. And my mom had called me and told me, that he had gotten into an accident, that he was okay, that, he injured his arm, but he's fine overall and he's at home. Well, I kept trying to call, and I called his home number and everything, and he wouldn't answer me. Well, the last message I sent him was, do you not like me or something? Because this was like within the first week and a half of us getting together. And I was like, do you not like me or something? Do you want me to leave you the fuck alone? Like, I'm just worried about you. I wanted to make sure you're okay. Do I have to drive out there? Well, he called me after that, like, no, 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 don't drive out here kind of thing. And he's like, no, why would you want me? I'm a loser. I don't have a vehicle now. And, you know, doing the whole guilt trippy shit. And I was like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm genuinely concerned about you. You know, are you okay? Like, do you need help? I'll come pick you up, you know, and I'll take care of you, is what I said. Like, come to my house. I'll make sure you're good, and I'll take you to your doctor's appointment, and we'll see what's going on, you know, whatever. Well, he kept doing the whole, oh, no, 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 you don't have to. I don't want to impose, you know, all that shit. But I was, it's almost like, beg me, you know, beg me to say yes. And that's kind of what I did. It's like all subliminal messages that we don't even realize is happening. But he wanted to come by. He wanted me to do all that stuff for him. And he just had this, he's very manipulative. So basically, even though it was his idea, ultimately it turned into my idea, or I believed that it was my idea because I'm like, oh yes, let me help you, let me help you. So I went, picked him up, and packed a little bit, he packed a little bit of his stuff up, like a little trash bag full of clothes basically, and he come over. And he stayed, he was only supposed to stay a few days, because he was on short-term disability through work. Basically, because of the type of work that he was doing, he wasn't getting paid, but his job was held for him until, you know, he could come back, and he needed the doctor's note and all that bullshit. But because my mom is in HR where he works, you know, she knew what was going on, so she was very supportive of maintaining his position and whatever, because, I mean, hell, she was there, she was seeing everything. So he was only supposed to stay for a few days. He ended up never fucking leaving. Just gonna say, I think he went back to his parents' house for a night, and then he was like, I can't stand to be away from you. I can't sleep when you're not beside me. It was like we had been together for 10 fucking years, but it was like literally a week and a half, something like that. That's the type of shit you'd say to somebody if you'd been with them forever. I don't know. It was very rushed. It was very, like, I don't know. I didn't see it that way, but that's how it was. So I picked him back up, and he never fucking left. I brought him to his doctor's appointments. He had torn ligaments, all kinds of shit in his hand, his arm, wrist, whatever. So I took him to multiple appointments, including when he had to have surgery. I mean, I was there for everything. I took care of him. And that's when I found out he had drug addiction. He was addicted to pain pills and heroin, which I didn't know about the heroin for quite a while. I knew about the pain pills probably, it was about a month of us dating, but it didn't seem to affect him that much. Like, I don't know, I didn't see it as a major problem. Because it was his own prescription, because I thought that's how he became addicted, to be honest. I knew that there was a problem because he was taking more than he should have been taking, but it was his own prescription, and I'm like, well, I'm not his mother, you know? I didn't know he was buying shit or stealing shit. I had no idea until later on down the road, which I'll get to that. I mean, that's a major contributing factor to his actions, I'm just gonna say, because he was definitely an addict. He still is. Actually, I think he's a lot worse off now than he was back then. But anyways, so where am I? I think he had to wait 3 months for the surgery. Or was it 2 months? That's why, yeah. It was like, maybe it was a month and a half, because he was going through all the scans and all this shit. Like, the surgery was the last resort, basically. Or, I don't remember how it worked. It was like a month in, I realized about the addiction. He had the surgery. I was there for him for that. And I remember when I was there, you know, I gave him a kiss before he went in for surgery, and then when he came out, you know, I was talking to the nurse and the doctor and stuff. I guess he was singing when he was under anesthesia. He was singing the songs and whatever. He actually, as he was coming back to, waking up, he was singing whatever song was in the OR, whatever was playing. And when I went in to, you know, make sure he was okay and give him a kiss and let him know that I was there, he actually flung his hand up and hit me. And I was like, well, fuck you then. He apologized profusely for it, but he was like, oh, it wasn't me, you know, you scared me. It's like, you didn't seem scared, but okay. But anyways, I forgave him for that because of the circumstances. I don't even know why it happened, to be honest. And the nurse was like, sometimes people get that way, you know, you're fine kind of thing. And I was fine. Like, I didn't have an injury from it. But yeah, I don't know. He was kind of nasty. He was really mean and pushy, like demanding. He's like, where's my prescriptions? Like his pain medication. I was like, I haven't picked it up yet. You know, they told me they called it into this pharmacy, whatever. That's where we're headed now. We're going to go pick it up. So I went to pick it up and it wasn't ready yet. And he was getting all pissy, pacing back and forth. You know, like, I'm like, you should just sit your ass in the car. You know, you just came out of surgery kind of thing. I'll handle it. He didn't want me to touch his medicine for some reason. Did he think I was going to steal it? I don't fucking know. But anyways, he was pissed that it was taking too long. So he was being a mouthy motherfucker. Like, he was just being mean. I got him his prescription, took him home, and I was just like, you need to pop a couple of them and go take a fucking nap. Like, you're a cranky toddler is what it was like. So he apologized later on for being such a dickbag, and he's like, I'm just in pain and the medication. It was always an excuse for everything he said or did. And I'm like, I forgave him because of the circumstances. I'm like, yeah, I understand, you know, I'm grumpy when I'm in pain too. I mean, I don't treat people like that, but yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. So then I started noticing, because he had, I think the pain medication, it was like Vicodin or something. Might have been Percocet. No, it was Vicodin. That's what it started off as. And it was enough for 2 weeks. And he went through it in a few days. And then when he called his doctor's office, he was like, they're like, it's already gone. He's like, I was in so much pain, it's not even helping. So they changed it to Percocet and a stronger one, so that he wouldn't take as many or whatever. And he's like, 'cause I don't remember how he said it, but he convinced them to change his prescription, up it, whatever. And we got that filled. Well, he went through that quicker than he should have as well, and he kept getting refill after refill. I don't know why these people, he was milking it. This doctor's office, they kept feeding into it, and I was like, wow, you really shouldn't be taking that much, you know. And when he would run out, he would, I don't know, he seemed like he'd get really sick, and I didn't know withdrawal symptoms. I didn't know any of that because I hadn't been with anybody who was addicted to pain meds or anything like that at the time, and so I didn't know what to look for, you know. And he always had an excuse as to why he wasn't feeling good or why this was happening, blah, 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 whatever. And I believed him. And, but when he was out of his medication, he would just over-exaggerate the pain he was in. Like, I really feel like he was healed a lot sooner than he really was. Like, no, than he claimed to be. I don't know how to word that. So basically, he healed faster, and he was just milking it, pretending he was in pain, so that he could get as much pain meds as possible. Well, when they wouldn't give him any more, he, you know, had withdrawal symptoms, which I didn't realize that's what it was. And because he would drink a lot of alcohol, too, so I was like, well, maybe it's from, you know, not having a drink or something, because he wasn't drinking during that time. And I thought maybe that could be it. But anyways, he got wicked pissy with me. Like, I gotta go to my mom's or his Mimi's or whatever. I need to go there now. I'm like, we'll go later. No, I need to go right now. Well, later on, I found out the reason is because she had oxys and prescribed to her because she was in her 80s, and I don't know what was wrong with her, why she had them, but I mean, she had a ginormous fucking bottle. And he would, whenever we were there, I'd be in the living room talking to his Mimi, and he would go, because her bedroom was here, and like the living room, bathroom, bedroom, but the bathroom had 2 doors, so you could enter the bathroom from the living room area, or you could go in, it was connected to her bedroom. So he'd go into the bathroom and then into her bedroom, and he knew where she kept her medication, and he would steal it from her. And he did this quite a bit, which I didn't know that was going on until much later. But it's weird how he felt so sick and he was so shitty, like, you know, he was sweating and, you know, I don't know, he was sicker than shit. And then by the time we'd leave Mimi's house, he was back to normal. So yeah, I guess red flag there, but I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't know what to look for, I guess. But anyways, I was kind of, I knew he had a problem, or I knew that he was abusing his medications. I knew that. I mean, that was apparent. But like I said, he's a grown-ass adult. What the fuck am I supposed to do? But anyways, I remember there was that. And I should have just left her in that mess. But of course I didn't, because I want to see the best in people. And I wanted to be there for him. And of course you can't just leave somebody after they get into an accident. And even if I did, he would always try to convince me to stay. Every time we would have this, because we kind of had an on and off relationship, because something bad would happen and I'd be like, get the fuck out of my life, and then he would cry his way back in, and that's just always how it was. It was just the cycles. It just continued on and on. Right from the very beginning, he would talk shit about his exes as well. That's another warning sign. Whenever somebody talks shit about anybody, it doesn't matter who they are, if they're like a gossip king or queen, just know that they're going to say the same crap about you, but 90% of it was lies. And I found this out because I actually talked to one of his exes, whose name is also Jessica, go figure, because he had a daughter with her and he had a son with somebody else. I can't remember her name. I don't know if he had any other kids. I think it was just those two. I never met his daughter, and it was long after him and I broke up when I actually was talking to her. And, you know, she showed me pictures, and her and I had we talked a lot because we had a lot to talk about, because, you know, she dealt with his abuse as well. I mean, hell, he pushed her down the fucking stairs while their daughter was an infant. She was holding the baby and he pushed her down the fucking stairs. I mean, there was multiple occasions where he did some horrible shit to her, and I was like, wow, I wish I would have known this, you know, before I got involved. So, you know, we both dealt with his bullshit. But yeah, I talked to her after we broke up the final time, and where was I going? Oh, he'd always talk shit about baby mama. It was always baby mama's fault. I can't see my son, or I can't see my daughter because they're you know, using the kids against me, kind of thing. No, it's because he didn't want to fucking see him, for one. He would you know how people do that, like the deadbeat dads or even deadbeat moms will be like, oh, the so-and-so's keeping my child from me, my children from me, because they're such a wretched bitch, you know. And they make you believe that this person's psycho and horrible and whatever, but they're really not. I mean, one of his exes is a little cuckoo, but she wasn't doing the shit that he said, that he claimed. And it's because he's been in and out of jail, which I didn't know about his record until I experienced him going to jail, which I'll explain in a minute. While we were together, that's how I kind of knew the in and out bullshit that had happened prior. But he would just always say really cruel things about them. And I remember, you know, I grew kind of attached to his son. He was a very good kid, and we'd have him over all the time. My kids got along with him, whatever. But he didn't even want anything to do with him when he was there. And he was actually really mean to his son. Like, he would yell at him. He could never do anything right. And I was like, if I was him, I wouldn't even want to come see you. But he, you know, his home situation with his mother wasn't that great, so the poor kid had no escape. I really think that he kind of clung to me because I was like a saving grace between his two parents, just gonna say. And I'd ran into him multiple times after the breakup and even picked him up on the side of the road. He was fucking 7 years old, in pajamas, no socks, no shoes, no nothing. It was fall, it was freezing, so it was starting to get cooler outside. He was walking in the city down the hill by himself, 7 years old. And I was like, is that who I think it is? And this was after me and MV broke up, and I pulled over and I was like, where's the adult? Why are you walking? And I picked him up. I told him to get in the car, and I ended up calling MV's mom, so, you know, his son's grandmother, and I was like, you know, I know you don't want to hear from me because of the circumstances, but I have your grandson here. He was barefoot walking in the city by himself. And she was like, what? So yeah, I ended up, you know, basically bringing him to his grandmother's house, and they handled it from there. She met me, but I was like, this is fucking nuts. You guys' family's crazy. But anyways, he would just talk shit about everyone. And it was because he would screw up relationships, and he would do all these really heinous things, and be really cruel to you know, the people he's with, his friends and even his family members. I mean, he treated his mom like shit. If you ever want to know how things are going to be between you and your love interest, especially if your love interest is a man, watch how they treat their mother. Are they respectful or are they disrespectful? I mean, he would even hit his mom. He was so fucking mean to her. So mean. And he would like throw shit and flip out and have these fucking tantrums to the point where, like, if he wanted money and she wouldn't give it to him, he'd do all this. He'd demolish the house to the point where she would just be like, fuck it, here, take the money and get the hell out. Like, that's how he'd get his way with her. And one time I remember he was having a fight with her and his stepdad. I think it had to do with him getting a job. I don't know, because he owed them a lot of money and he would never pay for it, pay them back or whatever. And he got so pissed off, and his Mimi was always there for him. Like, she was the sweetest woman. And she put up with his shit, and she still catered to him because, I don't know, she babied his ass. I don't know why. But he threw something and he fucking hit her. He hit her. An 80-something-year-old woman, he threw something and hit her in the head with it. And of course, I get a phone call and he's in a panic. Come get me. He's crying. Please pick me up. Please. He wouldn't tell me what happened. And I could hear people screaming, his mom and stuff screaming in the background. Like, they were flipping the fuck out on him. Well, he was crying, bawling his eyes out when I went to pick him up at the end of the driveway, end of the road. And on our way back, I'm like, what the fuck happened? Because I think his stepdad called and there was some really nasty messages he left. He was pissed. Like, don't you ever fucking come back. And he told me what happened. It was an accident. And I'm like, you hit your fucking grandmother? Like, she's the only person who's on your fucking side in life. What the hell? It was an accident. You shouldn't have been throwing shit. It wasn't an accident. But anyways, there was just like countless incidences like that. And I should have known by the way he treated his family that I wasn't going to be treated much better. But, he always blamed it on alcohol and stuff because he was nasty mean when he drank. It was weird because he would get a buzz on and stuff and he'd be fine, happy, and then there was like one point if he crossed that line, all hell would break loose. And he would go from this funny, lighthearted, fun-free person to the fucking demons from hell. I don't know. It was bad. And he was really fucking mean. He'd say really mean shit when he was drinking, and he would get physical. He got physical a lot. But anyways, so there was this one night, we went to a bar, and this is where I met his friend, RM. And actually, no, I met RM at the hospital because his stepdad was in the hospital because I think he had a heart attack or something. And I took my boyfriend to the hospital to check on his stepdad, and that's kind of where I met the family. This was before all the craziness I just said happened. And his best friend, RM, was there, and that's where I met him. I briefly, said hi or whatever, and then we left. And then I think they had planned, it was that same night. MV and RM had planned, like, hey, let's go to this bar or whatever. And at the time, RM had a girlfriend, and I was with MV, so I was like, okay, that's where I met him. And him and I hit it off. We were talking and we had a lot in common because he was, I don't know, he's very book smart. RM is extremely intelligent. MV, not so much. He's more street smart type person. He definitely didn't pay attention in school. He just don't give a shit. You can't have an intellectual conversation with that man to save your fucking life. It just won't happen. He's more into the whole rapper drama bullshit. I don't know. That's just, he thought he was black, I'm just going to say, but he was the whitest man I've ever met in my life. But anywho, that's just how he acted and how he dressed and how he presented himself. He thought he was gangsta. He also thought he could rap, but he couldn't. But anyways, a guy at the bar bought me a drink, even though we were all together, and the guy knew I was with somebody and with a group of people and whatnot. And Envy even came up and was like, oh, you bought my girl a drink, she's mine, kind of thing. And I don't know, it was like he was pissing everywhere, marking his territory, like, stay the fuck away from her. And I was like, he knows, I told him, he saw us together, he was just being nice, and bought me a drink, like, who gives a fuck? The guy's been drinking anyways, he wanted to be nice, it's a free drink, it's less you have to pay, why are you so fucking mad? I didn't even talk to the dude. Like, I got my drink, said thank you, and walked off. It wasn't like I was standing there shooting the shit and being disrespectful and, like, going from one person to the next. But anyways, that pissed him off. So, I mean, he made quite the scene, stormed out of the bar, and his friend had to go calm him down. And then, of course, RM's girlfriend was being psycho, and she stormed off, started walking home, so our RM had to go follow her and pick her up. That was a whole dramatic scene all in itself between them, which, whatever, I found out about that later, because I was like, wow, she was overreacting. I don't even know what the fuck her problem was, but anyways, it's just the healthy relationships across the board. So we get into the car, and, you know, him and I kind of kissed and made up, and I was like, it wasn't what you thought, you know, whatever, like, can we not fight about this? Because I knew he was really intoxicated, and he kept insisting on driving, and I was like, I don't want you to drive. Like, what if you crash? Because you don't really have the best track record with driving, just gonna say. But he insisted, and I'm like, okay, like, whatever. So he got in the driver's seat, and someone he knew was like, hey, what's going on? So he gets out of the car. I had a Jeep at the time. He got out of my Jeep and was shooting the shit with this dude, and he, like, pops his head and he goes, do you mind if we give so-and-so a ride home? He only lives up here, whatever, so he doesn't have to walk. His ride bailed on him, I don't know, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, I don't care. So this dude gets in the back seat. I'm in the passenger seat, MV's driving. So we're going to this dude's house, and this guy kept reaching around the seat, grabbing my boobs. And I'm like going like this, like, leave me alone. And he kept making, like, saying sexual things to me. And Marcus, and MV was laughing about it. I didn't mean to say his fucking name. I think I might have to stop this video because I gotta have to cut that out. Shit. But anyways, he ain't gonna see this. Who gives a shit? Anyways, he was laughing, joking with the dude, but the dude wouldn't stop doing it. He kept going like, shh, like, don't say anything. And I was like, oh, you're fucking gross, don't touch me. So I ended up sitting on the edge of the seat, like, almost like this, like, hugging the dashboard, because I wanted to stay the hell away from him. And MV's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you sitting like that? And I'm like, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything, because I knew how he would react. I'm like, I saw what happened at the bar with the dude that bought me a drink. If he knew for a second that he was groping me, I don't want to be in the vehicle for that. So we get to the dude's house, and the dude gets out, and he looks at me and he goes, what the hell is going on? Why are you acting like this? And I told him, I was like, well, he kept saying shit to me, and he kept groping me and grabbing my tits and stuff. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? He freaking gets out of the car and he ran into that dude's house. I'm like, uh-oh. I followed him, and he was like screaming at him, and I'm like, nope, fuck this. So I turned around and I got back in the vehicle. And by the time he came out, I guess he had taken him. He fucking grabbed him by the throat, threw him into the wall. I mean, he fucking beat the dude. And he's like, did you ever fucking touch my girlfriend? Blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever. And I mean, I felt good at the time. Like, I was scared. I was like, shit, you know, we don't need the cops being called. We don't need this to be turned into, we don't need it blown out of proportion, which is why I didn't speak up about a lot of things that happened. No matter who the hell I was with, because that's what I wanted to avoid. I didn't want physical violence. I always felt like I was at fault for some reason, even though I was just sitting there minding my own business, and it wasn't my fault at all. And that's technically, I don't know, he was touching me sexually against my will, and he continued to do it. So, I mean, it's not rape, but it's like, what is it, sexual assault in a sense. I mean, I wasn't harmed, but I was very uncomfortable. And if I was alone, it probably would have progressed into something I didn't want. But part of me was like, he stood up for me. You're the first man that's ever stood up for me. Because I've had people grope me and be inappropriate in front of, like, my husband, and nothing was said. like, he didn't even tell anyone off, let alone kick their ass. And here is this guy who's like proving his love for me by whooping someone's ass for disrespecting me. It, like, part of me felt really good, but I think it was just because, you know, he always wanted to pick a fight anyways. He was very hot-tempered when he was intoxicated, so it was kind of like a bittersweet thing. It's like, oh, I didn't want that, you know, to happen, but yeah, it made me feel good that somebody stood up for me. Well, the ride home was complete hell. He chewed me a new asshole, and it was my fault. He blamed me. It was all my fault. He had to take the matters into his own hands and, you know, hurt a friend of his because of me, and I allowed him to touch me, even though I pulled myself away as much as I could. I was in the fucking front seat of a vehicle. It was still my fault. I provoked him because I dressed too provocatively. I was wearing a fucking sweatshirt and jeans. How provocative is that? You know? But yeah, it's my fault because I'm a tease and I entice men and blah, 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 you know, all that shit. And that's how it always was. He would defend his actions and reactions to whatever. Basically, he would turn shit around. It was always my fault. I wouldn't have done this if you didn't say this. I wouldn't have done that if you didn't do this. You know, shit like that. Which is what narcissists do. And it's not really, I don't know if you'd call that, it's more like deflecting. It's not taking responsibility for your own actions, but it's deflecting shit away from them and putting it on you. It's not gaslighting because it's not denying what happened and making you feel crazy. It's just blame shifting. And he would do that all the time. Everything was always my fault. No matter if I was there or not, somehow it's my fucking fault. But there was that. And of course he berated me the whole way home. And then he ended up getting a DUI, not that night, but another night. And like, the store is right down the road from my house. Like, you can literally walk there. And I told him he should walk because I knew he was intoxicated. But he didn't listen to me. And he fucking got in the car, went to the store, grabbed more alcohol, and my vehicle had an issue at the time where something was wrong with the shifter. So if you would put it in reverse, it would be in drive, or something was fucked up with it, and I can't remember what it's called now, but sometimes you put it in park and it wouldn't park, it'd keep rolling. You had to like judge it just right. I don't know, it was like misaligned or something. But anyways, I didn't know what the problem was at first, and I told him, you know, something's wrong with the vehicle. You probably shouldn't be driving, period, but you definitely shouldn't be driving my vehicle because it has an issue. Well, when he went to put it in drive, he hit the gas really hard, and I was like revving it up because he was trying to get it into drive because the shifter was fucked up. And there was a cop sitting there, and he ended up peeling out of the store and got pulled over right in front of the house. Like, I literally looked out the living room window, and I saw my vehicle and a cop. So I'm sitting there watching the whole thing. I had been drinking too. I ended up going out there, and the cop wouldn't let me, you know, take my car and park it in the driveway, even though it was literally a couple feet away, because I had been drinking. So I had to wake my mom up and have her fucking do it. But I was getting a little mouthy because I didn't want him to be arrested and blah, blah, blah. So my mom ended up shutting me up, and they told me I could call, you know, the police station once he was in the holding cell and go from there. Well, I called. There's nothing I could do. He had to wait until Monday to have, you know, court proceedings and whatever. He ended up getting out on main pretrial, and I was wondering why the hell his bail was so high and what the hell was going on. It's because he had prior, this was like his 5th OUI. I'm like, wow. You obviously don't learn your lesson, and the judge thought the same thing. So I bailed him out. I paid for all that crap because that's what I did. It was stupid of me. I mean, he always found a way around everything, but I remember I was really upset that he was in jail, and when he finally got out. He got mad at me the day I went to pick him up from the jail because I took too long. I should have been there, like, you know, like I have magical powers. I could transport my ass there, lickety split. So he started walking. So he's a little pissy pants when he got in the fucking car. And he hadn't had any alcohol or drugs or anything. So he was really grumpy. And that was like the first thing on his mind. Well, that wasn't the first thing. Sex was the first thing. And of course, you know, it's like, yeah, I wanted it too, but I remember clear as day, when we got back to the house, we went right upstairs, and before I could even say anything, he didn't even say anything to me. All he did was, like, I turned around, and I thought he was going to kiss me, and he pushed me down on the bed, and we ended up having sex. I mean, I didn't say no or anything, but he was very, I was going to say over dramatic, but very pushy, ultimately. Like, I think he would have done it even if I said no, to be honest. It was just kind of like, you're mine. He treated me like I was a possession, ultimately. But yeah, and then after that, it wasn't like romantic or sweet or anything, because afterwards I just remember it was kind of like, oh, I did my business, now let's go. We gotta go get my pills, kind of thing. So we ended up going to his grandmother's house, and like I said, I didn't know that's what he wanted. He just said he had to go there, because this was still before I knew that he was stealing shit from her and buying shit illegally. Like, I really didn't know. He kept it from me for quite a while, and the only time he told me was, I think it was after we had been together for 6 months. He told me that he did them once in a while, is what he said. And I don't remember what his exact excuse was, but he had a fucking full explanation as to why he did it, and it wasn't because it was fun, and you know what I mean? I don't remember what he said, but there was a reasoning. And my stupid ass fucking believed him, but anyways, and he ended up, he was like, here, you try one. And I can't remember how it started, but that's kind of how my addiction started, was through him, because he was very pushy with shit. Like, try, oh, you'll like it, oh, you like this, try this, try this, try this, try this. Oh, it's only one time. Well, one time turned into a lot more than that. Misery loves company, and I know this now. He wanted to drag me down with him because I can't judge him if I'm doing it too, and if I'm doing it, I was working and he wasn't, I'll spend my money on it because I'll want it too. And that was exactly the way he was thinking, and that's kind of what happened. And he was the one that first introduced me to heroin as well, because I always said, I'll never touch that shit. No, 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 no. And I mean, I've never touched needles ever. And apparently now he is a needle junkie, and I was like, wow, he really escalated. But anyways, yeah, he introduced me to that, and I remember the very first time I ever did it, I was scared as shit, and I was like, this shit kills people. Like, is it gonna kill me? Like, I used to be a wicked goody two-shoes. I mean, yeah, I'm not proud of all the choices I've made in my life, we'll just put it that way, especially when I was a teenager, but I was very naive. And I really thought he loved me, and it's like, if somebody loves you, they would never have you do anything that would hurt you, and they wouldn't put you in harm's way, so I trusted him, which was a big fucking mistake, I'm just gonna say. But anyways, I did it in the vehicle. He was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and yeah, he had given me too much, and I puked and puked and puked and puked and puked and puked. Oh my god, I thought I was gonna die. It was horrible. I was like, how do people do this shit? Like, it was awful. I didn't like it at all. But then the next time he's like, just do a little bit at a time, you'll really love it. And that's kind of how he worked me into it later on down the road. But yeah, that was horrible. Ugh, I don't recommend it, just gonna say. But yeah, he pushed me into that, and I mean, I don't blame him fully. Yeah, I would have never done it if he didn't fucking push me into it, because he was very pushy. Like I said, he just wouldn't shut up. He wouldn't stop. That's not something I would have done willingly or chose to do or anything, so partially blame him, but, you know, we all have free will. He didn't shove it up my nose, you know. I still could have didn't, you know, I don't know, I guess part of me, I didn't want to tell him no, because I knew what the repercussions were for when I said no to him, you know. I'd get punished for it, like, and then guilt tripped, and I don't know, it would be, he would go through the silent treatment bullshit, and he would blame me for everything. It was just a headache I didn't want to deal with. So it's just easier to give in, to do what they say, because then you don't have to deal with the physical side of things, or being talked down to all the time. Because for fuck's sake, I remember, what was I gonna say? I'm like drawing a blank all of a sudden. I don't even remember what I was gonna say. He did so many things. I mean, I could probably break this into multiple videos. I mean, hell, when it comes to RM, like, towards the end of our relationship, I was starting to get a crush on RM because he was so nice to me. And whenever there was a problem with MV, we'd always call RM. So he was intermingled in our relationship constantly. But, RM liked me, I liked him, but it was like, no, we can't do this. You got, you're friends with my boyfriend. And we didn't act on anything. Like, I didn't cheat on MV with RM. I didn't do any of that. I got accused of it multiple fucking times. I did end up cheating, but that was towards the end of our relationship and after I had been accused of it a million fucking times. And this is how that one went. Like, my mom's boyfriend at the time was a fucking ex-Army Ranger, and he was a piece of shit fucking motherfucker. And he hated me. There's a long story when it comes to that. He was horrible. He was very conniving. Well, he kept telling my boyfriend that me and his best friend were, sleeping together and doing this and doing that he would come over when he wasn't there, and he would start shit, and it was all bullshit. It was all lies. So I would get punished for it. Like, I would get reprimanded by my boyfriend and screamed at and smacked and whatever. All for shit that I didn't even fucking do. It wasn't even true. And he kept accusing me of it. And he would accuse his friend of it too. And we would both be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. We deny it because it didn't happen. But, when somebody accuses you of doing shit and you're being punished for it long enough, you might as well do it. Make the punishment worthwhile. But anyways, that was at the very, very end of our relationship. So, one of the times he flipped out about, I don't know if it had to do with the whole "you're cheating on me" crap, but I don't remember why the hell. I don't know. He get mad at me over everything, so I don't remember what it was about. But I remember RM was there, and he was getting ready to leave, and me and MV were fucking getting into a fight, and he's like, I'm leaving with my friend, fuck you, you fucking bitch. And I was like, whatever, go leave, just go with your friend, get out of the house kind of thing. He ended up spitting in my face. He pushed me into the counter, and he kept like pushing me into the counter. My head was like hitting the back of the thing, and he was spitting in my face, and it was disgusting, and he was just saying a bunch of mean shit. And I remember I said, say it, don't spray it. And then he hucked a loogie at me. I was like, you fucking asshole. His friend watched the whole thing, who was going to be my boyfriend down the line, because I have the best taste in men, just going to say. Stood there, watched the whole thing, and then later on denied and said he didn't. Because I asked him, I was like, why didn't you stand up for me? Why didn't you tell him to cut to shit? Why didn't you step in between us? You were watching him fucking do all this crap to me. And he's like, I didn't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. He was denying it to make himself look better. And I was thinking in my head, like, you're standing right there. But maybe you didn't see it. Maybe you didn't witness it. Maybe you turned, because you were nervous. You were looking the other way. I don't know. I made excuses for him when I shouldn't have, basically. But, yeah, so that happened. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Thinking about this makes me feel stupid, to be honest. I mean, I have way more stories. And for some reason, I feel like I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to start over. But yeah, I mean, he even had raped me. And if you think that you can't get raped by your boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other or whatever, that's bullshit. Yes, you can. Because I don't do anal. Exit only, thank you very much. And I'm just going to say, the only thing MV had going for him is he was well endowed. Like, holy crap. He used to call himself white chocolate or something, like, because he's a white guy with a black man's dick is what he said. But yeah, he was hung like a horse, not gonna lie. Actually, RM was too. Anyways, Maybe that's why I stayed. Um, I'm surprised that he didn't, like, transmit any STDs to me or something, because he used to cheat on me all the time, too. I found out in weird ways, and the people he would sleep with were fucking crack whores and nasty, because it was all for drugs, which I didn't know about, and RM knew about it, and the stupid motherfucker never told me. And the only reason he said something to me is because when we, before the first time we slept together, he's like, maybe you should get tested because you were with Marcus. You know how many times I said his name again? You know how many times he slept around and with the people he's been with? Like, I did get tested and I was fine, but I was like, wow, nice of you to fucking tell me that. But anyways, yeah, I don't do anal, and he held me down and fucking forced me into it. I cried the whole time. I screamed and cried. And then he just got up and walked away like nothing ever fucking happened. Like he didn't just violate me. I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. But yeah, he just treated me like I was a possession of his. When he said, "You are mine," that's exactly what he treated me like. He bought me at the store, basically. Yeah, there was just lots of times. And then, of course, when we broke up, that day was hell. I'll have to go into detail another time. I don't know. I don't like talking about this shit, but, you know, an overt narcissist, that's basically how they act, because he always, you know, thought that his shit didn't stink. He dressed really well, and to everybody else, he appeared to be a good guy, but he was very selfish. Like, it was always about him, always, and I was never fucking right. I mean, hell, whenever I would succeed, he'd put me down. Like, I remember I was doing this weight loss challenge at work where I worked at the time, and I won. I had lost 15 pounds or something, and I was so excited because we had like a little prize basket and shit. And I won, so I got it, and I come home, and I was so excited, and I was like, oh, I lost 15 pounds, I won, I beat everyone, you know, and he was just like, oh, that's great, you can't even tell. Like, he was putting me down, basically calling me fat, because, oh, you can't even tell you lost weight because you're so big anyways, and it didn't even fucking matter, and he'd always change the subject, like, oh, you're doing great, wonderful, let's talk about me. I don't know, that's another sign. He was just a fucking asshole when he drank. I mean, hell, even a year after our breakup, my kids were still finding hidden liquor bottles all around the house. Like, that's just how he was. And I remember sometimes I would be like, have you been drinking? Because he would act different. No, I haven't had anything to drink. It's because he was hiding it. But he would get so belligerent that it would be obvious. I thought I just heard something. I think it's my bracelet. But yeah, he would do the whole, you know, if things got too bad, I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. Get the hell out. Like, I don't want to be with you. Oh, you know, the crying, begging, and pleading. And I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. I never should have done that. I mean, I have pictures. I think it's on my Instagram. I had this bruise on my leg because he whipped me with a coat hanger and he broke my door. He busted the door down, so it doesn't even lock right now still, even though I fixed it the best I could. He busted through and whipped me with a coat hanger and fucking just demolished my fucking bedroom at the time. And then after he would do something asinine like that, whether I was caught in the crossfire or not, it was always begging and pleading and crying and just kill me, just shoot me, I shouldn't even be alive, you know, all that crap. Trying to make me feel bad and go, oh, no, don't think like that, don't be like that, come back, you can stay, you know, whatever. Well, when we finally broke up, I had had enough and I didn't take his ass back, and I did revoke his bail, but like I said, that's a story for another time. But, you know, that's pretty much my experience with him. Can't believe I said his name twice. And that's, you know, kind of how it is when you're with an overt narcissist. I kind of think he's a psychopath, though, because he's crazy. And I remember the girl that he ended up dating after me. Of course, he would talk shit about me to her, just like he did prior, like I said in the very beginning, he would say really mean shit about his exes, calling them crazy and whatever. Well, I was one of the crazy ones, even though I wasn't. And it made, he had his new girlfriend message me, and I warned her ass. And of course, I'm a psycho, and she messaged me a few times being a nasty bitch because he had to serve his sentence for fucking assaulting me on the side of the road, because they got together before he had to serve his jail time. And she, when he went to jail, oh, she was pissed at me. It's all my fucking fault. I'm like, yeah, it's my fault that he hit me. Yeah, it's all my fucking fault, you dumb cunt. But anyways, she learned the hard way because he did it to her. I actually think that she hit him with her car. I think I heard something like that because he was trying to attack her. I don't know. He's fucking psycho. But I have more stories to do with him. It's just, I'm sure some of you have had experiences like that, but I don't know what else to say. I might have to redo this one and like have a more detailed list of things. Like I said, shit pops up in my head and I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So this is kind of all over the place. It wasn't very structured. Whoops. But anyways, that's what I have for you. Yeah, it's not exactly the happiest topic, but there's my overt narcissist fucking story, whatever. And I will talk about MG too, which is another abusive boyfriend that I was with, as well as RM, because he's a covert narcissist. And though actually I think covert narcissists are more scary, they're more terrifying, because they have stalker tendencies and they fly under the radar, so people don't fucking believe you. And Overt, it's more believable because they act all cray-cray in front of everyone. And he did act crazy a lot of the times. I mean, my mother is so docile. She does not yell. She doesn't get angry very often. And she would scream at him. And I was like, you're the only person my mom yells at, so you're doing something wrong. Just gonna say. And she hated RM too. Like, she really did not like him. And rightfully so, because he was a sneaky, lying fucking piece of crap. Which we'll talk about in another video. But yeah, that's it for now. And I'm sure I'll say more about MV because I didn't even go over our breakup story. Yeah, and there's some other things. I mean, obviously, I didn't explain everything in great detail, but it is what it is. He was just a fucking abusive piece of crap. But I love you long time. Peace.